I'm going to move on now to alternative jobs and selection criteria. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, it's very important to think about any possible vacant roles in the consultation process, even if the role is significantly different in location, pay, up or down, status, whether it's a casual role and the person's full-time, duties, whether the duties are significantly different from the role to be made redundant. And the most important reason you're doing this is to manage the risk, is so that there can't be an argument that there was a vacant role there that wasn't offered to the employee. And look, I actually had a great example of this with a client last year, a redundancy process we worked on for them. So they had it's basically a company in the IT space. I can't be specific about what the company does, but they had a role. They had two sales roles based in Victoria and based in Queensland, and they were looking to make both of these roles redundant, and they basically said, look, we want to get out of the roles in Vic and in Queensland. We want to actually put the resources into the United States. And I said, well, is there going to be sales roles created in the United States as a result of this particular change? And they said yes. And so what we actually did as part of the restructuring process, knowing that there was a 99% chance that these employees were going to reject that offer of alternative employment, was we said, look, your roles in Victoria and Queensland will be made redundant, or they're at risk of being made redundant. However, we have these roles available in North Carolina that will be there should you wish to apply for them. And no surprises that neither of these employees wanted to upend their whole life and move to the United States for these jobs. But what that demonstrated was that the company thought carefully about the matter, thought about the vacant roles that were available, considered Section 389, whether there were alternative roles, and even though they're operating in a different workplace relations system, it was still important to put that role forward as a means of mitigating the risk. And yeah, again, it was a very successful redundancy process that went through without a hitch. So again, that was something that, even though we knew that those employees were 99% sure not going to take those roles, important to put forward. I've had other ones where we've had, general managers or not general managers, but let's say, people in $100,000 roles being offered a casual warehouse role for, $25 an hour. So again, even though those roles are completely different, and again, 99% chance that they're not going to take it, it's again important to consider any vacant roles that may have in the organisation. If you look at the matter I dealt with those 10 years ago in the commission with Specialty Fashion Group, one area that they failed in particular in the decision, if you look at it, is that they had vacant roles and they didn't offer them to the people that were being made redundant. So that was how we were able to advance the interests of our clients in that particular matter. So consider any of those alternative roles, and always good to kick around ideas on those particular matters before undertaking the consultation process. So selection criteria is another thing I'd like to just dive into a little bit further today. So selection criteria relates to that in circumstances where a position is to be made redundant, if it's one of a number of similar roles, an objective selection criteria is important to demonstrate fairness. And for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to use accountants, because we've got a lot of accountants on the line today. Haven't seen a lot of accounting redundancies in the last 12 months. That's probably great news for the accounting fraternity, that jobs are probably as secure as they've ever been. But let's say hypothetically I've got 5 tax accountants in my firm. I need to reduce by 2. So then what I would do going into a redundancy process is, I can't just simply say, okay, I'll pick this person and that's it, and then just go ahead with the redundancy. What I really need to do, if those roles are all similar or the same, I need to have some sort of science behind why I've picked these 2 people from the batch of 5, okay? And things that you might look at might include, okay, skills, experience, performance, qualifications, the breadth of duty. So I might look at, let's take a accounting example for the purposes of this discussion. So can this tax accountant do SMSFs? Can this tax accountant do monthly IASs? Can they do quarterly BASs? Can they consult with a client at the end of the year about their tax affairs? Can they give advice on ATO matters? Can they, seek payment extensions, things like that? Can they, give advice on ASIC matters? So you might have a whole bunch of these criteria that you might have for your 5 accountants, and then you can either go an out of 10 score on each of these 5 criteria or 3 criteria. It doesn't have to be overly complex. And what you'll find is you'll end up with the same result anyway, is that the people in your head that you thought, oh, well, they're the 2 weakest links and those are the ones that should go, that will actually play out in the criteria anyway, because most people in business will make the right operational decisions based on what they think is best talent for them to retain going forward. Look, the other way you can approach redundancies is you can approach them on a voluntary basis before going through forced redundancies. I'm not a big fan of voluntary redundancies, because what I find happens in voluntary redundancies is that, let's say for example, you've got 10 accountants, you want to offer 2 redundancies. The people that are probably most likely to put their hand up to take the redundancies are probably your best people. They're probably the ones that will take it because they go, well, you know what, I can get this wad of cash and then go off and find another accounting role tomorrow like that. So not a big fan of voluntary redundancy processes. I'm open to them in circumstances where the jobs are basic and that there's not much difference between person A and person B. But let's just use the tax accountant situation. I mean, there is a big difference between a good tax accountant and a bad tax accountant, or a not so good tax accountant, should I say. So again, think about that, and most of the time I prefer what I would call a forced redundancy rather than a voluntary, because you'll end up retaining the best talent after the restructure has taken place. And there's no point, if you're going to do 5 employees and make 2 redundant, there's no point keeping the worst 3. You want to keep your best 3. So that's how you'd approach it. The other thing I would say is that you need to really consider that selection criteria before restructuring commences, and it doesn't have to take very long. We can give you advice on what sort of criteria you might consider, how you might score it. You'll end up with probably the same result you had anyway in your head. It's just putting it out and bringing it into some science on how the people were selected. We have put together this, what we call a limited time restructure package for anyone who's looking at undertaking a restructure, and that would offer the following services as part of the restructure package. That we would provide you with a restructuring and redundancy plan. We provide you with advice on the payments and the related obligations. We give you the initial meeting plan, the initial consultation letter. We would give you advice about the alternative jobs and selection criteria if it's applicable. We give you advice on the further consultation discussions, the final meeting plan, the final meeting and the discussions and letters around those things. We can organise for you outplacement at EAP, and we can give you a discount for the Fair Work Commission proceedings should you need us to represent you should any matters go before the Commission. For any clients with 1 to 3 redundancies or 1 to 3 employees in that restructure, costs $1,500 plus GST. It's a limited time offer that we're offering only for the purposes of this, because we're coming to the end of JobKeeper. We don't normally offer this as a one-off service. We do have it included in all of our support packages for clients, which are essential support, performance and risk, and HR managers. For any clients that are interested in ongoing support arrangements, they are included free of charge as part of those support packages. So if anyone's interested in those things, please get in touch with us at ondemandhr.com.au, and we can talk you through either a limited time restructuring service or assisting you on an ongoing basis with this being at no extra cost for you as part of a monthly support.